Well, thank you both for being with us today. Really appreciate, Collins, you calling in and reviewing the Center of Excellences. Really amazing things that we're doing there, delivering to, on, and beyond the farm, and really helping growers with that knowledge transfer and how to better understand to be more productive. And Anita, really great examples there. I love the components that you incorporated and how you talked about change, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, and how sustainability can really help the bottom line in a positive way. So thank you both again. Our next presenter is also joining us online. We have Francois joining us to discuss climate change and the steps that Bayer is currently taking to mitigate it. Francois is the geographical segment lead for EMEA and APAC, professional for Cucurbits, Openfield, and large seed fresh market. Please try to say that 10 times fast. He joined the company in 1991 and has held various positions in testing, product development, product management, demand planning, and is now in charge of strategic marketing, providing the mid and long-term directions to our business to always better satisfy our customers and to bring them an appropriate assortment of resilient and widely adaptable solutions. Francois, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Jackie. Good morning to everyone. So please, let's go to the first slide. So clearly, are we all ready for climate change? You know, as Anita was indicating, so the world is changing constantly, and we need to make sure that we can adapt ourselves in the best possible way to our coming changes. So just to start with, you know that the new COP, the COP28 is starting in Dubai. So that's the right time, of course, that's the perfect time to talk about this critical point of agenda. So where do we start? So from a United Nations point of view, you know that sustainability is already at the core of many concerns, of plenty of discussions which are taking place. So we know that we have a number of needs which are already clearly identified, that everyone is starting to cover, to address, and to find solutions for the benefits of our growers, of our customers here. And you see, this is the list. I will not go through the entire list of that particular slide, but one of them clearly is the actions, the climate impact, you know, so the number 13 here. So if you don't mind, please go to the second slide. And that will be exactly the topic of my presentation today. So that's a reality. So if you go to the next slide, so that's the reality, the climate, and you know that you are all observing that already for a number of years. We see the impact. The climate is changing everywhere. So you have situations where it's getting more dry, where it's getting more warm. We are losing rainfalls, but at least things are changing. You know, today I'm calling from a very sunny Netherlands, while in fact yesterday it was raining like hell all day long. So what we observe is much more, let's say, adverse conditions, which are, of course, making the life of our customers and growers more complicated, more difficult. So here you see that, and we are not talking about a future situation. We are talking about a reality. And you see these two graphs without entering into the details. That's the reality. So temperature is going up significantly during the past decades. And if you move to the next slide, please. So it has multiple impacts. I know that, sorry for that slide is a little bit small, but it has an impact on many aspects. So it has an impact on the crops, on the way we can handle crops in different areas of the world, in different countries. We see that some crops are already starting to move, because in some areas that becomes more difficult, but it has an impact on the soil, on the water availability. So we have a number of aspects on the arable land availability as well to continue farming. So the different growing conditions are impacted. And guess what? We need to face these changes. We need to adapt ourselves. We need to prepare, and we need to bring, let's say, more adapted and more widely spread solutions to the growers. We need to be in a better position to bring the proper solutions, which are going to help us, in fact, to continue to provide effectively the expected food to all the consumers. And this is really what is at the core of what we are intending to to bring to you all as solutions, as integrated solutions. So if you move to the next slide, please. Okay, remember, and I'm sure that you remember this number. So during the COP21 in Paris, what we said, let's try to remain below 2 degrees of temperature increase by the end of the century compared to the pre-industrial era, so back roughly in the 1850. 1.5, 2 degrees, but you know, for the first time ever, we are in 2023, and despite the months, and Shuji was mentioning at the beginning of our session today that this is freezing in Hungary, and I was looking at the weather conditions. It has been snowing throughout the entire German territory yesterday. But the reality is we are already at 1.5. So we have huge differences. We know that in different parts of the world, in different continents, in different regions of the same continent, the warming is not going at the same speed. But all in all, 2023 is going to be the first year where we are already reaching this 1.5 degrees mark. So now, what do we do to try to stay at this level? Now we still have almost 75 years to go for the end of the century. So at the same time, you could say that's a long period of time, but this is also a very short period of time. So what can we do here? And where do we need to focus and to make sure that we can be, as an organization and all together with you, we can be as impactful as possible to maintain, to limit this climate change and to limit this elevation of the temperature while continuing to sustain our agricultural world to feed the populations. So if you go to the next slide. So again, as I said, that's the reality. You see on the left-hand side, that's a small map centered on the European continent. So the darker the color is, the warmer, or at least the higher the increase of the temperature is. So you see that already we see a very significant increase in the past 30 or 40 years. And to what we observed during the past 5 years or 10 years, this is in fact today accelerating. So if you go to the next one. So here, that's an interesting case. This is more related to the rainfall and the precipitation. So what do we have? On the left-hand side, this is the annual changes. So the more this is blue, the increase of the rainfall is. But the interesting part is how, in fact, these rainfalls are becoming, let's say, not as well balanced as they used to be in the past. So on the left side, this is the overall situation on a yearly basis. So you see that we have regions where overall the rainfalls are going to increase. And if you look at least Central Europe here, you see that this is either slightly going up or pretty steady compared to what we observed in the recent past. But on the right-hand side, when you start to, let's say, to zoom in fact, for the summer period, you see that the picture is completely different. And you know that for our vegetable work, in many cases, we have many crops, and not only, but we have many crops which are grown in spring, summer, and autumn. So that means here, the picture is significantly different, where you see that we are going to have a higher and higher deficit, and not only exclusively in the southern part of the continent, but in many countries where we are going to suffer a lack of water in the course of the season. So really, that's the fact, and this is where we are today. So we really need to adapt. We need to modify our way of growing, and we need, of course, all your contribution, but we need to become more resilient. We need to use the water we have available in a more wisely way. So this is really what will be essential for us all to continue growing what we are growing today. So if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here this is just an additional graph to say and to stimulate and to argue one more time that we don't have time. We already started to do many things, but we need to continue. We need to continue to accelerate to adapt ourselves for the future, for the near future. So clearly, we don't have time. We need to act now. We started, but we need to do much more because you know as well that we are probably not acting quick enough. Next slide. So if you consider the European Union as such, so remember that you have the increase of the temperature, but of course, you know that this is highly related to the gas emission quantities, or at least and specifically the CO2. And remember that the agriculture is one of the reasons we have an increase of the gas emission. And so just to give you two numbers here to highlight, the first thing is that the European agriculture is contributing at the level of 12% of the entire gas emission. That's one thing. And on the right-hand side, so we are talking about what? We are talking about 70 million tons of CO2. And so just to give two numbers to keep that in mind. Okay, so next slide. There are numbers, so just to highlight, and of course nothing to read here, but there are already a number of regulations which are in place. You have climate and climatical policies which are in place. So they are progressively implemented, they are regularly revised as well, and they are clearly highlighting a number of goals we are trying to, directions to give and goals we are trying to reach. So you have a climate law, and you see exactly what we are trying to do. It has been quantified, so that means the targets are pretty clear. There are deadlines, and this is what we are trying to aim for. But again, as I said earlier, to where we are today, we are still not in the middle of a bridge, but we need to accelerate, we need to articulate much more, and we need to be much more active to that respect, to try to reach effectively these different targets which have been fixed globally by the politics. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we are talking about smart agriculture, what we are trying to do? So there are a number of components, number of elements that we want to secure that effectively we can contribute to this limitation of and to adapt ourselves to the climatical changes. So clearly, you have the adaptation of what we see today as the climate changes. So that's really something that we can articulate. We already started to work on. You have all the elements related to the reduction of the gas emission. What can we do? How can we become more efficient? How can we continue to produce more with less entrants? How can we be more sustainable in general? There is the question related to the removal at the soil level and the crop vegetable, so the vegetation, sorry. So clearly how to make sure that you don't have a raw soil during the winter time, for instance, and this is really something which has been proven to be extremely efficient. And of course, we want to evaluate what are the costs and the benefits, because in the end, we need to find the proper balance in order to be sustainable on the long run. Next slide. So we define, and you already know all these different elements, what we call the entire crop management toolbox. So we have different elements, components that we can play with, that we can articulate on, that we can propose novel situations, novel solutions to make sure that in the end, it's going to bring, let's say, a better balance or a better way to practice agriculture and to feed the world. So here, what are we talking about? As an example, so the land, you know that we have more and more a question of land scarcity, land availability. What do we want to do with what we have available today? The water availability, we know that it's changing. We know that it's not well balanced during the course of a year. We know that because of the climate change, for instance, we will have less water in spring and summer when you are close to the mountains, or traditionally you used to have more snow, or you used to have more ice. We know that, as an example, if you come to the Alps in general, so the surface, the acreage of glaciers that we have, which is a source, an important source of water for different countries in the summer, is going to shrink, up to the point that we estimate that more than 50% are going to disappear before the end of the century. So which is absolutely dramatic in terms of climate evolution here. Seeds, of course, as a seed company, we are playing an important role because that's our role, to create the right varieties to face all these challenges that we are facing today and that we will continue to face. Fertilization, nutrients. So what kind of origin do we want to use? How do we want to do that? And the same on the pesticides part. So that means we are, our crop protection colleagues are actively working on that. We are working also all together to make sure that we are going to provide more and more integrated solutions to address all these challenges and difficulties. Nothing is going to happen without data collection, data analysis, because that's where we are going to be more efficient, more to the point when we want to find solutions to our problems here. And then you have questions of machinery, robotics on one side, and of course to address the labor scarcity that you find also more and more in many countries. We need to make sure that we will have a proper use of the right labor in terms of quantity we will have. But of course that makes a complete situation. So everything goes together, that you see that we have different options and we can again articulate more on one versus another one. But in the end, we need to continue to keep the big picture behind that. Please go to the next slide, if you don't mind. Okay, now, what I said so far definitively applies to all agricultures that we have. You heard Collins talking about the smallholder farmers in Africa, but here clearly we have different typologies of agricultures. And what we are clearly aiming here is absolutely to address to all the different agricultures. So you have the indoor farming, that's one, the super high-tech, in fact, we have a vertical farming. We have a precision agriculture. We are absolutely and more involved in what we call regenerative agriculture. So producing more with less, while preserving and restoring the soil, while keeping the biodiversity as well, and to make sure that in the end, that will become clearly part of the sustainable agriculture. Another example that I want to mention, so you have the organic farming. You know that already for the second year now, Bayer is progressively starting to offer an organically certified seed set of varieties, and specifically for the protected culture for the time being. And we are in the process to expand that in the coming years to more crops, and specifically some crops in Openfield. So, but these are just a few more examples. If you go to the next slide. Okay, so here quickly, so we are always combining and comparing, what we want to do to preserve our planet on one side. We want to make sure that it's going to address effectively all the challenges that the populations, all the people are facing, and of course, as long as this is possible in a profitable way. So this is really what defines, and this is at the intersections of all these different elements, and this is where the sustainable development resides and will continue to reside without any choice here to that respect. Next slide. So in terms of game changing, in terms of in agriculture, so what are we proposing? What are we starting to propose, and what we will continue to propose in a more extensive way, in a more systematical way? Clearly, we are innovating on the pesticide side. So that means biologics is probably going to become more and more important. The right solution to make sure that we are providing the right elements of applications. And again, back to the example that you saw earlier in Africa. So just to make sure that we are proposing the right integrated solution. So from a pesticide point of view, from the seeds as well on our side, so that the seed business part. So that means new varieties, novel products, varieties where we are going to create quicker solutions to all the changes you are facing. We are using new breeding techniques. We are using all what the breeding toolbox is offering us. But of course, we want to bring more and more varieties which are going to be resilient, which are to be, in fact, more widely adaptable, which are going to be more rustic to the adverse climatical conditions that you will continue to observe more and more. So we want to see the deployment of this kind of new varieties, and we are working extensively on that. And clearly, to help you also, we want to go more and more to a digital farming solution. Altogether, we are absolutely convinced that we bring a significant part of the overall, let's say, solution to adapt and to shape, in fact, the agriculture for the coming decades. So if you go to the next slide. Okay, so from, again, that's a little bit, it was a little bit mentioned on one of the previous slides. So what we call the farmer's toolbox. So clearly here we want to bring more innovation. We want to accelerate the innovation because we want to help the farmers. We want to help you all as well to find the best possible solutions, but not in 40, 50 years from now. No, I would say as quickly as possible, just to make sure that all the topics, all the issues we are facing today, we are looking and we are working on finding clear and real solutions which are going to bring, in fact, value to the farmers, to the meantime, and to the entire chain as well. So again, and so just to name them quickly, so the irrigation part, so the water usage. So that's not only the water, the amount of water, but how do we use it? How do we make sure that we bring the water to the plants at the best possible time to make sure that we are as efficient as possible? From a nutrient perspective, that's the same. And as Francois was mentioning in one of previously, so to make sure that you bring the right amount, not too little, but not too much, to avoid waste, of course. The pesticide, the same, the right pesticide to fight against the appropriate pest and disease, to make sure that we use the right chemical, the right dosage as well. The seeds, again, as I said, resilient varieties, the best possible varieties with the right disease package, but not only, but to make sure that it's going to bring the right starting point to help all our growers, all your growers to produce the expected fruit and vegetable. And the precision farming for a number of growers as well, to make sure that we can optimize and that we can be in a best possible way to produce what needs to be produced. Next slide, please. And then as the last slide to finish with, so quickly said, please, key takeaway for us all, in fact, and that's just the start of a new journey, which already started earlier, but we need to continue this long journey, but we need to act. So clearly, we need to listen to science and to the society, and that goes all together. We strongly believe at Bayer that the science and all the technologies we have available are going to bring part of the solution, most of the solution, but not everything, because of course, these sciences, these technologies need to be understood, adopted and accepted, in fact, by the society. We clearly need to continue to better integrate our crop management. So that means there is a lot of initiatives already going on here, but we need to continue to articulate and to do more to accelerate. And of course, related in addition to that, to secure the proper balance, to continue to demonstrate the value of what we are bringing as solutions, as integrated solutions, to face and to adapt ourselves and to, let's say, again, shape and reshape the agriculture for the future, facing the climatical changes that we see today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francois, for being with us today and reviewing all of that information. It's really great that you went over every component of what growers need to consider, especially when thinking about climate change and a sustainable future. So really great to see that the tailored solutions in the entire package that we're researching in order to deliver to the customers and really have sustainability lead to that critical financial success. So thank you again for being with us today.